It was a cold, rainy evening. The streets were nearly empty, and the faint glow of streetlights shimmered on wet pavement. A young man named Ethan hurried home after a long day, his jacket soaked, shoes squishing with every step. Distracted by the downpour and his dying phone battery, he didn't notice he had turned onto the wrong street, one that looked eerily similar to his own. He reached what he thought was his house. Same porch light, same mailbox, same curtains. Without thinking twice, Ethan used his spare key and pushed the door open. Inside, everything looked familiar, yet not quite right. The hallway smelled of something burnt, and faint music played upstairs. "Mom? Dad?" he called out, but no one answered. The lights flickered slightly. A chill ran through him. The photos on the wall, faces he didn't recognize. His confusion turned into unease. Before he could step back outside, the front door slowly closed behind him with a loud click. He wasn't home, and someone or something was upstairs waiting. Ethan froze at the bottom of the staircase. His heart pounded as faint footsteps echoed from the second floor. The music he'd heard earlier stopped abruptly, replaced by the sound of slow, deliberate breathing. He tried to convince himself it was just his imagination. Maybe someone left the TV on. Maybe his neighbors had moved their things around. But deep down, he knew something was wrong. The air inside the house felt heavy, almost thick, like it hadn't been breathed in for years. He whispered, "Hello." A pause. Then a soft, distant voice answered, "You're late." Ethan's spine stiffened. "Who's there?" he asked, his voice trembling. But there was no reply, only the faint creak of a floorboard above him. He took a step back toward the front door, but when he grabbed the handle, it wouldn't budge. Locked. He twisted it again, harder. Still locked. Panic began to rise in his chest. Then he noticed something strange. A pair of muddy footprints led from the door to the staircase, not his own. The prints were too large, too wide, and still wet, as if whoever made them had just come inside moments before. The lights flickered again. This time, he heard movement directly above him, someone pacing slowly back and forth. He reached for his phone to call for help, but the screen stayed black. Dead. "Okay, this isn't funny," he muttered, trying to sound brave. But deep inside, fear was crawling under his skin. Then came the whisper, close to his ear, though no one was there. "You shouldn't have come here." Ethan spun around, his breath visible in the cold air. The house fell silent once again. But he was no longer alone. Ethan's pulse thudded in his ears. The silence of the house pressed against him, every creak, every faint rustle echoing like a warning. He squinted toward the top of the stairs, where a shadow seemed to move against the dim glow from a half-open door. "Hello," he called again, his voice cracking. No response. He stepped forward cautiously. Each stair groaned beneath his wet shoes. The smell of damp wood and burnt metal grew stronger with every step. When he reached the landing, he noticed the light spilling from a bedroom, a dull yellow, flickering slightly as if from an old lamp. He peeked inside. The room was in disarray, furniture covered in dust sheets, cobwebs glistening in the lamplight. A music box sat on the dresser, its lid half open, playing a faint, broken tune. Then he saw it, a tall figure standing motionless in the corner, its face hidden by the dark. Ethan froze, breath shallow. "Hey, I didn't mean to." The figure turned slowly. Its eyes reflected the lamplight, pale, lifeless, and wrong. Ethan stumbled backward, knocking over a chair. The sound broke the silence like glass. The figure took a step forward, not walking but sliding, as if gliding just above the floor. Ethan bolted down the hallway, heart pounding like thunder. Doors on either side of the corridor rattled violently as he passed, slamming shut one after another. He reached a window at the end, but it wouldn't open. The glass felt warm under his trembling hands, too warm, as if heat pulsed from the outside. Then came the whisper again, this time echoing from every direction. "You don't belong here." The lights went out. Total darkness swallowed him. And in that pitch-black silence, Ethan heard someone whisper his name, right behind him. Darkness engulfed Ethan. He froze, afraid to even breathe. Somewhere behind him, faint footsteps circled slowly, like someone or something, studying him in the dark. He reached out, searching for the wall, but his fingers touched only air. Then a dim light flickered again, this time from down the hall. It wasn't the same yellow glow. It was colder, bluish, almost like moonlight reflecting through fog. He followed it cautiously, his hands trembling, his breath short and uneven. At the end of the hallway, he found a door slightly ajar. He pushed it open. It creaked slowly, revealing what looked like an old study room. Dust hung thick in the air, and the faint scent of mildew mixed with something metallic. Blood, maybe. On the desk lay scattered photographs, black and white, faded. Ethan leaned closer, brushing off the dust. His stomach dropped. Every photo was of people standing in the very same house, but their faces were slashed out with something sharp. He turned one photo over and found words scrawled on the back in shaky handwriting. They never left. Ethan's heartbeat quickened. He looked around, realizing that every picture frame on the wall showed the same family, smiling, in the same rooms he'd just walked through. But the wallpaper in the photos wasn't old or torn. It looked new, alive. And then he saw something chilling. In one photo, taken in the hallway, a man stood near the stairs, wearing the same jacket Ethan had on. His mind raced. "This can't be real," he whispered. The floorboards behind him groaned. A soft, feminine voice spoke near his ear. "You came back." He spun around, no one. The window shutters slammed shut with a bang, trapping him inside. The house wasn't abandoned. It remembered everyone who entered and never let them go. Ethan's breath came in shallow gasps. His hands shook as he backed away from the desk, eyes darting around the room. Every instinct screamed at him to get out. He ran to the nearest door, twisted the knob, locked. He tried another, jammed. He sprinted to the front of the house, but the corridor stretched longer than before. The walls seemed to breathe, expanding and shrinking, their wallpaper rippling like skin. "What's happening?" he shouted, slamming his fists against the walls. The house responded. A deep creaking sound echoed through the floors, as if the entire place were alive and aware. The pictures on the walls began to change. The smiling faces in the old photographs turned toward him, their eyes following him as he moved. Ethan reached the staircase, panting. He could hear whispers, dozens of them now, blending into a low chant he couldn't understand. The temperature dropped sharply. His breath fogged the air. He grabbed the doorknob at the base of the stairs and pulled. Locked again. This time, he kicked it, though it cracked, but instead of breaking, it pulsed once, like something inside the house was healing itself. Then, a shadow appeared at the top of the stairs, the same tall figure from before. Only now, its shape was clearer, its face visible in flashes of dim light. It looked human, but its skin was pale gray, eyes hollow, lips twitching into a faint, unnatural smile. "Why are you doing this?" Ethan screamed. The figure tilted its head slowly, almost curious. "You walked in," it said softly. "Now you stay." The front door suddenly burst open, but beyond it wasn't the street. It was a dark, endless void swirling with faint whispers. Ethan took one step back. The house sighed, and the door slammed shut again. He was trapped. Ethan leaned against the wall, shaking. The house was silent again, too silent. The air felt heavy, pressing against his chest like invisible hands. He could still hear faint whispers, not from around him, but inside his head. He stumbled back toward the study room, desperate to find a clue, a window, anything. The old photographs still lay scattered on the desk, but now one of them was different. It hadn't been there before. It was a color photo, clear and recent. And in it, Ethan stood in the hallway of this same house, looking terrified. He dropped it instantly. His mind spun. "No, I was never." Then he remembered. A vague memory flashed him walking home last winter, cutting through this neighborhood. He'd seen this same house before, thought it looked familiar, and for some reason, he'd tried to go inside. He couldn't remember what happened after that. Just darkness. He looked up at the walls again. Now every photograph showed him. Different poses, different moments, some looking scared, some sleeping, one even looking straight at the camera with a blank expression. The whispers grew louder, merging into one voice, the same woman's voice he'd heard earlier. "You never left, Ethan." He spun around, and there she was, the pale woman from the shadows. Her eyes glowed faintly, sorrowful but hollow. "What do you mean?" "Who are you?" he whispered. "I was like you," she said, her voice distant, echoing. "I walked in, and the house kept me. It feeds on the lost, those who mistake their way home." Ethan stepped back, horrified. She reached out her hand, translucent and trembling. "Now it's your turn to stay." The floor beneath Ethan's feet cracked open slightly, glowing faintly with a cold blue light. The walls pulsed once more, like a heartbeat. The house wasn't haunted. It was alive. And it had chosen him. The floor trembled beneath Ethan's feet, glowing faintly from deep cracks that pulsed like veins. The air thickened with whispers, hundreds of overlapping voices calling his name, pleading warning. The pale woman's hand hovered inches from his face. "Don't fight it," she whispered. "No one ever leaves." Ethan's mind screamed no. He stumbled backward, clutching the wall, his fingers brushing against something, a handle. A door. But this one was different, small, almost hidden behind the peeling wallpaper. He tore the paper away and yanked it open. A narrow staircase led downward into pitch darkness. The house groaned as if it knew what he'd found. With every step, the air grew colder, denser, harder to breathe. The whispers quieted, replaced by a low hum, rhythmic and deep. At the bottom, he found a single wooden door glowing faintly around the edges. It looked ancient, carved with strange symbols. His shaking hand reached for the knob. Behind him, the woman's voice called softly, "You'll only find what you've already lost." He turned the knob anyway. The door creaked open, revealing not a room, but the same hallway he had entered hours ago. His shoes left wet prints on the floor. The front door stood open. Rain poured outside. Was he free? He stepped through and froze. The neighborhood looked identical, but wrong. The street signs were blank, the air too still, the world silent. He turned to look back at the house, but it wasn't there anymore. Just darkness. Then he saw his reflection in a window nearby, pale, hollow-eyed, and smiling faintly, just like the others in the photos. The realization hit him. The house hadn't let him go. It had become him. Ethan tried to scream, but no sound came out. And as lightning flashed, his reflection whispered, "Welcome home."